So we start every day with a morning meeting, and I believe that will continue. Breakfast will happen in classrooms. We're going to try to get outside as much as possible. That might be for activities, and that might be for some learning time. We'll still have language arts. We'll have daily reading instruction and writing instruction. We'll have phonics and word work. We'll have read alouds. All of the same things will continue during our literacy program. For math, again, it will be very similar. We'll be using our Bridges curriculum. There will be mini lessons, discussion and practice, small group instruction, number corner, and math fluency practice. We will also have science and social studies. We use an inquiry-based NGSX approach. We'll still be using that. So that will be inquiry and experiments with some discussions. And we will continue to have all of our specials. So we'll still have PE that will hopefully primarily be outside, art, library, music, and work with our guidance, our school counselor. And that's a typical day for when we are here at school. The people who are at remote, so if A group is in school, that might be what they're doing. B group would be at home, and they'll also be doing some similar things. They will take home some language arts assignments, reading assignments, writing assignments, phonics and word work. We'll be using different online resources that can supplement some of what we are doing in school. For math, it will be similar. There may be practice problems that will be sent home that were based on the Bridges lessons that students were working on while they were in school for the 2 days. There might be some games, both online, and maybe some games that come along with the Bridges program with manipulatives, and that can all be sent home. And then for science and social studies, we might have selected science and social studies activities. We have a program that we call Mystery Science that is a great online program, and other online resources that we'll use. And there may be some times for some synchronous opportunities while students are working at home. For instance, some morning meetings might be shared between what's going on at school with the at-home folks, maybe some read alouds, or perhaps some other special activities that we might have from time to time. There might also be some time for office hours on Wednesdays for students to reach out to their teachers if they have questions or some assistance that they need. And again, I think we'll be able to have our specialists, our art, PE, library, guidance folks be able to also send home some activities for students possibly on those days as well. So that is a little bit about our hybrid model. The remote model looks really quite different. So I'd like to talk about that for just a minute. And I did actually just send to you right before this meeting sort of a longer outline of what the remote option could look like. Wendy Savery, our curriculum director, put that together, so look for that in your emails, but I'll speak to it just a little bit right now. So our Lamoille North students will be learning remotely if they choose this option 100% of the time. Remote learning will be facilitated by an LNSU staff member, and daily attendance is required and will be noted through participation in an online classroom activity. We cannot guarantee that your child's teacher will be from Waterville Elementary School, but the teacher will be from our district. Students enrolled in remote learning will be provided similar content and have the same amount of schoolwork as those attending school in person. LNSU will be using the VTVLC online curriculum for all students that are fully remote. For your student to enroll in this option, we ask that our families are aware and willing to commit to the following. Participating in remote learning will require significant parent or caregiver oversight, especially for students in the younger grades. Students enrolled in remote learning will continue to receive special education services online through the district. Attendance, grading, and workload requirements will be consistent with in-person classes. Dates will be set for supply pickup so that students can receive any technology, textbooks, or other supplies necessary to engage in the remote learning. This learning model is completely separate from the hybrid model described in the table above, and it will also look very different from the instruction that was provided earlier this spring. So that's a little bit of what the two models will look like. And now I'll kind of share some other information, just general information about the school day, and sort of give you maybe another bit of the picture of what things will look like. So we'll start with a bus. Each bus will have a bus monitor, and they will be riding the bus in the morning and the afternoon runs. And they will be taking temperature checks in the morning, and they'll be collecting the mandated questions that all students are required to have before they can get on the bus. Parents will need to wait at bus stops to take students home if they have temperatures or symptoms. Students will have assigned seats and will be expected to wear masks on the bus. Buses will be cleaned daily and hand sanitizer will be available. Depending upon who is requesting bus transportation, some routes may be altered, and there will be more information that will come out when we have all of that figured out so that you'll know. There will be more information to come about this. Also to note, the middle and high school students who were originally and traditionally dropped off sometimes at WES in the morning by parents, we won't be able to accommodate that anymore. So they'll have to pick up the bus at their regular stop and take it all the way to the high school. There is a transfer between the two buses in the morning. The high schoolers take one bus from here to go to the high school. They will still be able to make that transfer. They just won't be able to be dropped off early by parents to wait for the bus, if that makes sense. Parents who are choosing to drop off students at school, we're going to have to sort of assign a little drop-off car lane for you in the front of the building. And like we did earlier, or somewhere in the middle of last year, when we kind of tweaked our pickup and drop-off, we'll send home a detailed sort of map of where you need to go for that. But basically, it will be along the front of the school by the gym. Parents will sort of wait in a little parking area along that side, and there will be screeners outside to do the temperature checks, and they will come to each car and they will also collect the mandated questions. Everyone in the car will need to be wearing a mask, and you can remain in the car. No students may enter the building before 7:30, and screeners will not be outside until promptly right at 7:30. Students will have an assigned entrance and exit route so that we won't have multiple and different grades and cohorts entering the same doors. We'll have that routed out and we will share that with you. People that will be allowed to enter the building will be parents and or guardians who have a previously scheduled appointment, and pre-K parents and guardians just for the first few days can come in, but everyone will need to plan to be screened. If a student or a staff member has a temperature of 100.4 or above, they will not be allowed in the school or on the bus. Additionally, if a student or staff member has other symptoms, such as chills, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headache, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, nasal congestion or a runny nose, nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea, they may also be required to stay at home. If a child or staff member shows signs or symptoms of COVID at school, they will be screened by the nurse, and if there are COVID symptoms, will be escorted to an isolation room staffed by the nurse. We have created some isolation rooms in the gym. They will have air purification and a separate exit. Parents and guardians will be informed and will need to come and pick up their child. If there is a case of COVID-19 at a school, it will be reported to the Vermont Department of Health, and they will do the contact tracing and work with the superintendent in school to determine next steps. Masks will be required for all students and staff. If students or staff do not have masks, they will be provided. Staff may wear face shields without masks, but they must be cleaned often. A doctor's note will be required for a student to be exempt. We will work with students to help them understand the importance and the expectation of wearing masks. If a student does not have a doctor's note and is refusing to wear a mask, they may need to engage in schoolwork through the remote option. Families should plan on being able to wash cloth masks daily. Hand washing and sanitizing will happen often throughout the day. Upon arrival, before and after eating, entering a new room, playing outside, bathroom use, and handling of facial coverings are just a few examples. Breakfast and lunch will be brought to each classroom. Students can also bring breakfast, snack, and lunch from home. Students are encouraged to bring a water bottle, as water fountains will be closed, but they will be able to refill their water bottles. If you do not have a water bottle, we have ordered extra, and there will be some provided for those who don't. Students will eat lunch and breakfast with their classes. The playground structures right now will be shut down. Students will have several opportunities to go outside during the day instead of one big long recess. Teachers have already created a list of activities that students can do outside that maintains the distancing rules. Masks can come off while students are playing or during PE, but they must still remain socially distanced, and masks need to be on hand in case we have to line up or come inside or into close contact quickly. Breakaway type lanyards will be given to students so they can quickly access their masks, and will ensure masks don't end up on the ground or getting mixed up with other masks or being dirty. Students will remain in their classroom and with their class for most of the day. There are a couple of exceptions. That might be if a student needs to go work with a specialist or the school counselor, or to go see the nurse, or use the restroom if their restroom is outside the classroom. Restrooms have been assigned for each class, but as you know, some of ours exist out in the hallway. So a couple of classes will be traveling a short distance down a hallway to a designated restroom. The restrooms will be cleaned hourly. The Unified Arts teachers will come to the classroom or will do a remote video lesson. Each student will have an assigned space to hang up their belongings and will be encouraged not to bring anything unnecessary to school. Those belongings will be spaced out in classrooms. Students will sit at individual desks or tables with dividers to ensure proper distancing, and they will all be facing forward. Students will have their own individual materials, markers, pencils, notebooks, etc. There are two math classes, our third grade math and our fourth grade math, that will end up traveling outside their classroom to a new classroom that we've sort of built in the gym. Those classes typically in our past years have been taking place in our library, but our library space is just a little bit too small to ensure the proper distancing. So we built sort of an additional classroom in part of our gym for those students. And those students will travel, weather permitting, usually outside their outdoor doorway around to the gym and use that entrance, so they won't be passing one another in the hallway. They will be also taking their own individual supplies with them. So each student, as I said, will have sort of their own individual bin or box of supplies, and they will bring their own supplies with them to this math class if they need to travel for that. Tables and chairs will be disinfected in between those two math classes. And as often as possible, I think teachers will take students outside and have many classes outside, including probably some of these math classes. Fire and safety drills will happen this year, but there was a modified and slightly changed schedule that was approved and sent out by the AOE. If anyone would like a copy of that, just send me an email and I will send it out to you. But we keep logs of all drills, and there will be some right off the bat when we get to school. And I think that is basically the information that I sent out to you that sort of describes basically what our day will look like. And if anyone has any questions for us, I would love for you to share and ask. You see Melissa. And if I don't see your hand, just maybe jump in. I can't see all of you. Oh, Kat, do you have
How to figure it.
Oh, sorry, Kat. Do you want to talk first? I'm sorry.
Well, I realize, I think from yesterday's forum and from parent questions, that there may be questions that Flo Kelley and Dylan Laflam can answer. And we might be able to preempt some of that if they talk a little bit. I don't know how you want to do this. And then for Wendy, our curriculum director, I think we'll probably have some questions. I don't know. I know Melissa has a question, but I thought that might spur more questions on if you have our experts speak as well.
Okay, sure. How about I grab Melissa's question and then I'll turn it over to Flo and Dylan and Wendy. Sorry, thanks, Kat.
Hi. So bear with me. I have quite a few questions. I won't ask them all today, but I just a couple of the key ones. Well, first and foremost, with the new guidance that came out today, is that going to change things dramatically?
So the guidance has, and I will let Kelley speak to the health pieces of that. There has been a push to have more in-person instruction for K through 5. However, we are given the flexibility to do what, to abide by the plans that we have set forth. And in our plans, we are looking at them again in 30 to 45 days. That might move it closer to 30, just to see what the modeling looks like in the state. I will tell you that as of today, we have 11 new cases. We've been sort of almost flat. That is coinciding with colleges starting up with move-ins to dorms. I do know that UVM had some tested positive cases in their athletes that were back early for practice. And I know that NVU is moving their students in this week. And for the first time, 30% of those students are from out of state, which is great because we like to welcome people into our lovely state. But it also means we have to pay attention to what's going on in those states. Now, the one thing that could change this, Melissa, is if the governor directs us through some order to start school in a certain way. I doubt that's going to happen before school starts because I think the governor recognizes what mayhem that would cause. So we are committed to looking at our plans again within like 30-ish days because we want to look at the modeling, but we will do what we are compelled to do if it's earlier than that.
So the decision we make this week is based on the information we have as of today. And then, so say the decision in, 2 weeks into school is that we're going to go back to 5 full days and parents aren't comfortable with that. Is our option at that point just homeschooling? Or is there going to be other options?
An other option. That option will be to learn remotely.
Okay, to go to the remote learning.
Yeah.
And then as far as the hybrid model, so what would that, Jan spoke to that a bit. Do we know at this point whether there's going to be clear daily assignments set forth? And also, will students in the hybrid model be given the technology they need to do that?
Yes, I think yes to both of those. There will be daily assignments. I think that will look pretty traditionally like they did in any regular given year. We'll still use Lucy Calkins, we'll still use Bridges, we'll still use all those same curriculum pieces. We may add in some of the new curriculum pieces from the Vermont Virtual Learning Cooperative just so in the event that we all go remote, students have some familiarity with that. And yes, we have technology now for all of our kids pre-K 6. So the computers can go back and forth so that families will have the technology they need to access all the content.
Okay. Do other people have questions? Because I'll keep asking questions.
Maybe it would be good we could hear from Dylan and Flo and Wendy, like Kat suggested, and then Melissa, if your questions are answered, you can jump right back in, okay? All right. So who wants to go first? Flo, did you have your hand up? Are you ready to go?
I think you're muted.
Yep. I'm always ready to go.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Flo.
Hi, everybody. I am Flo Kelley. I've been a school nurse for over 14 years and a nurse for 50 years, I hate to say. But at any rate, I've been embedded in this process since March. I've been selected as a district representative to serve on the Vermont State School Nurse Task Force, and I'm still doing that. We're actually meeting tomorrow. So I am very much kept abreast of all of the changes and changes to come, and I anticipated the changes today. Our plan is very flexible, and it was easy for me to slip in the new guidelines. So from a health perspective, really the only change, the significant change is that before we were doing all of the screening questions at the school. Now they've made it so parents do these at home. And we're trusting parents will do this and commit to it, because we need to have documentation of the responses of these mandated questions. So that's the only change, is that parents will be filling out the forms at home instead of us doing it at the school site. We always had planned for temperatures, and that's still a requirement per the guidelines. So we're continuing with that. The other thing I wanted to clarify is that with regard to face coverings, as Jan had said, we will supply kids if they need masks. It's a good idea to have a few on hand. It's a good idea to put kids' names on the inside. There's a right way and a wrong way to wear them and remove them and handle them, and all of that education will be provided. I want to let you know that neck ups, or what they call gaiters, or scarves, or bandanas are not acceptable. And the reason for that is when you wear a scarf, the bottom of it is open, so the air droplets can still escape. With the gaiter, it's contained on between your face and your neck, and when you pull them off, you have to pull them off over your head, which expresses all the droplets. So the CDC recommends we not have those. The other thing that's not allowable is face masks with a built-in vent in it, because they vent out. And so because they vent out and don't have a quality vent in it like a respirator, those are not allowed. So regular cloth face masks from home, or we can supply them at school. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit too.
Okay, thank you, Flo.
Yeah.
Shall we go on to Dylan? Dylan, you want to go next?
Sure,
All right,
absolutely.
thank you.
And Jan, you actually touched a little bit on pretty much everything I'm going to talk about. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to expand on it just a little bit. I kind of have a script here, folks, so I'm going to kind of read through it so I don't forget anything. So Waterville has hired one full-time temporary employee to help cover with the added duties that are going to be expected with COVID custodial. We've added a lot of COVID-specific custodial procedures directly to our district cleaning lists. We've trained all our staff on doing those. Standardized district-wide disinfectant lists have been made. Basically, every school is using the same series of disinfectants. They've all been checked and double-checked with EPA, so making sure they're certified to kill COVID. We're also doing a pretty comprehensive training. It's basically going to happen the 18th and 19th for all full-time year-round custodial staff and facility staff, maintenance workers, everybody. It is certified in disinfectant and control principles for infectious disease from the Global Biorisk Advisory Council. So we've all had lots of training on how to use disinfectants. This is going to be how to use disinfectants to contain any kind of biorisk. So it's pretty pertinent information that we're going to be using. That's kind of custodial in a nutshell. HVAC, I just wanted everybody to know that all of our HVAC systems are 100% operational, including all of them at Waterville and Belvidere. All filters to all HVAC systems, including coils, have been changed and cleaned and sanitized. Ventilation has been basically manipulated so that we're pulling in direct outside air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to basically the maximum capacity of the system. The state has recommended that we do 12 full air cycles per 24 hours. We're going to exceed that by double almost on every room. But anyways, we're definitely exceeding it in every room. All night setbacks and efficiency program has been removed. So again, we're going to be running these systems 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. General facility information, Jan touched base on the isolation rooms. Waterville's isolation rooms have been built. It's basically a nurse's station with 3 rooms with a MERV 20 HEPA filter, which will filter influenza, it will filter COVID, it filters everything, and that'll run 24 hours a day as well. Room setup guidance has been sent out to all staff, and it adheres to the AOE and the VDH guidance with 3-foot spacing. Where 3-foot spacing can't be maintained, we'll be building barriers. We have 150 table barriers ordered currently, 88 we've taken delivery of, the rest should be here within next week. So once we start to really configure rooms next week with teachers, we'll go through and start to apply all these barriers desk dividers. We have all kinds of stuff to basically either maintain that 3 feet, or if we have to be within 3 feet, have a physical barrier in between the students and faculty sometimes. Deliveries will basically, we've remodeled all of our typical procedures. So deliveries all have to be done outside. Even food service, we will not allow delivery companies to bring it into the building. They'll drop it outside. We'll have somebody meet them outside. We'll check our lists, and then we'll have to deliver it inside. That goes the same with any outside vendor that needs to come in. If we do have maintenance work that needs to be done, we will push to have it done after hours, but we'll also, those maintenance workers will have to have the same screenings that all staff do. They'll have to get their temperature checked and go through the screening list. And then the district, as everybody's kind of talked about, we've procured roughly 3 months of PPE. That's personal protective equipment. We have 3 or 4 different types of masks in varying levels, different comfort zones, different sizes. We have one size, there's not one size that fits all. We should be able to basically custom whatever anybody needs. We should have something what they need. Face shields, hand sanitizer, gloves. We all have 3 months supply of all of those items in stock on campuses right now. I think that's what I have for you folks tonight.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, how about Wendy? I don't see you, but I know you're there.
I am here, and
And
thank you,
she
Jan.
could probably answer that question that's on the side from Heather.
Let me. So I will answer that. First of all, Jan, thank you for giving such a great overview and more details on what the hybrid and remote learning will look like at Waterville. I certainly don't feel a need to repeat all that, but let me highlight some of the key differences and similarities, because I think that's where most of the curiosity and questions are right now. So under the remote, what is different is, first of all, this is not the same remote learning as last spring. Last spring was an emergency situation where we were all thrown out of the school buildings and immediately trying to figure out how to continue that continuity of learning for students sort of on the fly. We were pivoting. As a result, you know, we were very deliberate about trying to do no harm under very difficult circumstances, had a different grading system, etc. So that is not what we're talking about with remote learning. You may have a different teacher, as Jan said, from another school. As we don't yet know what the total parent request will be in terms of hybrid versus remote, that'll all be looked at next week. There may be a need to have other teachers from our school district, not just Waterville teachers, be full-time remote teachers. So therefore, we are partnering with the Vermont Learning Collaborative, where we are able to use their solid accredited online curriculum and resources to do that. So we'll have consistency. The number one feedback we got from last spring, especially from parents as well as teachers and students, was more consistency, easier communication in one place. So that partnering with the Vermont Learning Cooperative really helps us to do that through everyone using the same learning management system and the same curriculum remotely. For the fully remote, again, it is 100% of the time. It is completely separate. So again, it's not some pieces at the elementary school and some pieces remote. It is 100% remote. The similarities are in terms of that outline of students' instructional day, and I think that was one of the questions, how many hours will students be expected to remote learn on home days? So in the remote, we are following the AOE, well, we're following the AOE guidelines, giving us the understanding that it's all based on the age of students and age appropriate developmental levels. So the range is a minimum of 2 hours to a maximum of 5.5 hours daily. And that's true, I think, for all of us. It may be a full program of 5.5 hours, like in the hybrid model, students are there from 8 to 3 or whatever the hours are. But we know for our young students, like kindergartners, first graders, it's not 5 hours of academic direct instruction. So the remote learning will be adjusted and modified depending on the grade level and what's developmentally appropriate. Again, a minimum of couple hours to a maximum of 5.5. What will be similar is the components of morning meetings. They'll have access to all their content, literacy, science, social studies, math, some specials. And there should be some similar expectations in terms of assignments, projects, encouraging kids to get outside where possible, and that sort of thing. So again, we will take that into account in terms of the instructional time, as well as following the state expected guidelines around attendance, which Jan mentioned. That should be similar as well in terms of engagement, getting online, handing work in. So those are some of the key differences and similarities.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, I guess now we can open it up for questions if there's anything that we can still answer for you. And if I don't see you, maybe jump in. I can only see about 16 faces here.
Hey, Jan, before you do that, I just wanted to give a quick update on pre-K.
Oh,
A
sure.
lot of
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah, a lot of the things you addressed, but there were a couple of things that I wanted families to know, and I did, in collaboration with Deb Errol, reach out to the families that we knew of early August, end of July, about busing, and that I just want to be sure if you didn't receive notification that pre-K busing will not be available this year. So the other piece we're working on as a pre-K team in the district is working on an orientation plan for pre-K students who have not seen the building, the Belvidere building. So I'll be working closely with Jan as well as Dylan Laflam for accessing that building for those new students.
I think there's a question that Dylan might be able to answer.
Sure. Yes, we've looked at Belvidere a lot, and we have kind of a plan being built for using it as auxiliary space. Nothing I want to go into a ton of detail right now. We're basically looking at permitting and what we need to do to open it up as a full school again. And so like I said, we've got a plan that we're building. It's just not ready to be put out there quite yet.
And I would just add to that, you know, we're really fortunate here in Waterville. Our classrooms are quite large. So if we are, especially are looking at 3-foot distance with potentially half of our students in each class, we're going to have plenty of space, I believe, to accommodate that pretty safely. There's a question from Emily. Do you see that?
I see it, yes. I can answer, Emily, your question regarding a student showing symptoms and quarantined at school. The siblings will not be sent home as well. It's only if you show symptoms or you have a fever. But all the school nurses will be contacting parents and guardians, so you have that information. If you now are going to be looking at your children and making a determination as to whether or not they have symptoms or they need to stay home. So it's really your symptom check when the child comes home and every morning that's going to be critical. So the quarantine child is only if they exhibit symptoms while at school or have a fever of 100.4 or more, and that policy never hasn't changed. We've always had 100.4 or greater as our policy, so that's the same.
And I can address the question on whether remote days will have video meetings or if tools will be given for the classwork. The remote learning will have a combination of live instruction as well as pre-recorded lessons. There should be some one-on-one time. There could be small group time and whole class time. It'll be a variety. All those pre-recorded lessons and assignments should be on the Canvas Learning Management Program, which parents would have access to, so that parents could, you really should be thinking in terms of weekly. Here's what needs to be done over the course of the week, and you have a great deal of flexibility to do the work that's expected of students in the most flexible time possible for you.
Right, and that's for the fully remote option, right, Wendy?
Correct. That's fully remote. I'll let
Right.
you speak to the hybrid.
Hybrid, so for on the days that students are working remotely, but they're in the hybrid model, so the 3 days when they're not at school, they will probably be doing mostly work that has been assigned from the 2 days that they were in school, which some of that might be online, some of that might be a little bit of paperwork or workbooks that were sent home. It'll be a combination of things, but I do believe you will have quite a bit of flexibility about what time you do those, with the exception that there could be a morning meeting that a teacher would invite the remote student to. And that, of course, would have to, take place during the regular school day time. But I believe there'll be some flexibility for the hybrid remote days. And then, Jim, I see your question. Do you have a plan for going back to school full-time 5 days if approved by the governor? And I think if the governor, like Kat said earlier, mandates that we open schools 5 days, it will look like, I think, Kat, and tell me if I'm wrong, it will look like school, like we, our traditional school day. And it will depend upon what other health or safety requirements might go hand in hand with that, I would guess, Flo, right? Would you agree?
And I would think that that's true too. And we also need to have some flexibility for families who've chosen to remotely learn for the year, or at least for the first semester, because we have distance educators who will be working with those students. So all of our plans are designed to go in and out of this continuum of in-person, hybrid, fully remote. So I think that we do what we're told to do. But that will obviously exclude some students who have decided that they are going to be remote learners for the year.
Okay, any other questions? Melissa, did we answer all your questions, or do you still have some questions?
I still do have some questions. I'm sorry, bear with me. So I know Flo had spoken to, the gaiters and bandanas and such and the like, and I saw also, I had some concerns about use of face shields by staff. It looked like the new guidance also shared those concerns. Will the Waterville Belvidere staff be using cloth facial coverings based on that new guidance? And
I'm not sure if Flo's going to answer that, but I will take a stab at it. I think
I can. I'm sorry.
No, good.
I was trying to get my computer to work for me. It wouldn't unmute, so I apologize. But face shields are not preferable. This is not a new guidance. It was in the original guidance as well, for staff only. So, and it still remains for staff only. It's not preferable, but it is allowable. So they are allowing it. The caveat is they have to be ear to ear, below the chin, no skin on the forehead, and they have to be routinely cleaned and cleaned whenever moisture builds up. So trust me, I have in my nursing career had to use them many, many times. They fog. They're not as easy as people think, and I just think it's a concept to people that they might be easier, but once they start to use them, they probably won't continue to use them. Face coverings are much more comfortable. Now, staff may be required to use the face shield and a face mask in certain circumstances. So I'm considered a healthcare provider. So if I am treating a student, I'm going to have to wear both, either some kind of eye protection, either the face shield or the goggles and the face mask. Other people that come into our system that are also considered healthcare professionals, like physical therapists, occupational therapists, those folks will also have to follow specific guidelines for their specific profession. So there's going to be a combination of things.
okay. And if there is a case in the school, would the entire school be notified? Even
No. Because of confidentiality issues, and it's the same in the public community. The Vermont Department of Health gets notified of the positive test. They contact the individual with the positive test. They determine who the contacts that individual possibly had. Then they determine whether or not an actual contact has been made, which means being with somebody closer than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. So with our distancing, our face coverings, contact may or may not occur, but it's not as likely. And then whoever they consider the contacts to be, those people will be notified. But this is all done via the Vermont Department of Health. And certainly I encourage you, if you have any questions with regard to that, you're welcome to contact them in the local office at Morrisville or in Burlington. They are very good at answering questions, but they do all of that. They do all the notifications, all the tracing.
so generally speaking, we would not know if there were cases in the school.
No, not unless your student was, or your child was contacted.
Right. And then I guess another question would be, given the size of Belvidere Waterville School and the size of the classrooms, and if you're cutting those classes, the number of students in half, is there really a need for not being 6 feet apart and having plexiglass dividers? Or it seems like we should.
Can I speak to that for a second? So part of the reason why the plexiglass dividers is because every school in the country is in the boat we're in right now. And so trying to get desks, because unfortunately in the last 5 or 6 years, schools have really gone from the desk modules to like collaborative work and tables. So some of it is honestly our furniture restrictions. So a lot of our, actually, to be completely honest, pretty much every classroom in the elementary level has gone to like a 5-foot table that 2 students would share. So we have these special plexiglass dividers that are getting built that will be mounted to those tables so that we have the space to necessarily space them in the room, but we don't have the furniture to do it with. Does that make sense?
It does. It's
Yeah, and
unfortunate.
actually, well, it won't. I don't think it'll be as much in our school as others because, again, you're right. We do have the benefit of being a smaller school and with some pretty large classrooms. So I think there will be some set up at the tables so that teachers can still do small group work with a group. But for mostly, except for maybe the 1st and 2nd grade classroom, we have managed to even have enough tables because the tables are small to mostly house 1 student at each of those. So for the most part, they will have their own table or desk, or small table that is their own. So we won't actually have to rely on plexiglass as much as maybe some of the other schools would, I think. Dylan, is that from your recollection?
That is true. Actually, Brian Toll only ordered 4. So you're only talking about 4 tables that need dividers at Waterville.
Yeah, so we're pretty good.
And doesn't Belvedere School have a whole room full of desks?
That's actually why you guys got away with only 4, is that Brian went and did take all the desks from Belvedere and move them to Waterville. We didn't have quite enough, but yeah, you reminded me when you were the one elementary school that we did have access to some of those tables. And the plexiglass dividers, just so folks know, outside of the Waterville Belvedere community, these actually are going to go, it's not just the table, they go back to where they seat. They go in between the tables, basically almost all the way back to the next table behind them. So it's not like it just sits at the desk and the kids in their chair can still look at each other. It follows all the way back behind the table where they would sit in their chairs as well.
What grades would be using those?
Well, it depends, again, on the type of tables that are in the room. So, for example, probably in Hillary's room, she has a few tables. So if she wants to keep using those tables, there may be some of those dividers. And then often many of the classrooms have a kidney-shaped table or kind of a roundish table so they can have 2 or 3 students come up at a time to do some small group work. And there may be some place there so they can still do that small group work sort of, all together. But like Dylan said, there will not be many cases where we'll have to use plexiglass. I think here at our school, we have enough space to just space people apart.
Yeah, this is Brian. Brian. Can you hear me? Anyone?
Yes, go ahead, Brian. Brian is
Okay.
our building manager here at Waterville Elementary in Belvidere.
As Dylan was saying, we only have a need for right now for about 4 because we had access to the Belvedere ones. I do have a few more out in the shed that can be brought into the rooms as they kind of get their final version of their rooms to have a little more spacing. So have very few left at this point, but we will try to space them as much as possible. And if we have the ability, we'll move the desks in and move some tables out if need be. And we'd rather not use the dividers, but we have them here if we need them. So.
Thanks, Brian. Do we get Melissa? You have one, and there's a couple on the side also from Sarah and Jim, and I want to make sure I get those into. Melissa, do you have another question to follow up, or?
No, we can Sarah
Okay.
and Jen.
All right, we'll get back. So there's one for Flo from Sarah. Did you see that, Flo? Maybe you'd like to talk.
Yes, I did. And I will speak to that. School nurses don't diagnose COVID-19. We don't do testing. So, you know, kids, they could have a cold. They could have the flu. They could have a lot of other conditions. If you look at the comparisons of the symptoms of COVID-19, they parallel many, many, many other things. So what the recommendation is to us is that the child go home, we contact the parent, we recommend they contact their healthcare provider, and their healthcare provider make the next decision. So right now, that's how it stands. But I know that there are guidelines that will be coming out again soon that will be addressing specifics for that and actual specific steps for nurses to take for children going into isolation and what next steps follow. So more is to come, but I know right now that's how we're planning it. Okay.
And Jen, I also see a question around the long term. What do we see in the long term with the change in learning styles, and how are teachers being trained? So part of our partnership with the Vermont Virtual Learning Cooperative does include training around that transition to remote learning, which would be useful for all teachers, whether it's full-time or the hybrid. It contains a 5-hour training in best practices around these shifts to, in person as well as remote learning. We're also starting the in-services off with 2 different social emotional learning trainings for staff that really cover a wide range of managing stress, what has been the impact of COVID on social emotional, behavioral learning, etc. It will also have a piece on how to develop a better mindset under these changing circumstances rather than feeling victimized, how to empower ourselves a bit and stay focused and try to provide the most stability that we can. So we are trying to address it from all avenues, whether that's guest speakers coming in on the social emotional training, as well as training through the Vermont Cooperative. And the other piece I know that is being worked on is maintaining this level of professional development throughout the year, including partnerships with Lamoille County Mental Health and other partners in the area. So some of that work is occurring as well.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Are there any other questions out there, either through the chat or I can see some of you, or just jump right in? Melissa still has some. Go ahead.
I had some questions about music and PE. It sounds like the gym's going to be closed. So is PE just going to be outside, or? And
yep,
then
we're going to. Yep, we're going to have gym outside, and I think we're going to try to get a large tent so that in the case of rain or questionable weather, we'll still have a dry space for kiddos to be outside for that as well. Oh, Melissa, you're muted. Sorry.
And then with regard to music, I know some of the upper grades were able to do band. Is there any thoughts on, I know that you can't have wind instruments. Is there any thought on still providing that sort of enrichment opportunity at where they could play at home but still get instruction at school, or is that just kind of way too much for this year?
No, I think we're going to try to work it out. Carol and I have had a few conversations about that, and I think they've changed a little bit of their idea of that, you know, perhaps some of those lessons can take place outside if there's enough distancing. So I think we're prepared to be creative with that and try to, you know, continue that as best we can, because that's such an important piece for so many students that we'll figure it out and make something work. I feel pretty strongly about that. Flo, did you want to talk about that? It's probably in some of your health guidance as well.
Yes, you know, singing and wind instruments are allowable outdoors right now because of the extra droplets that are expressed in those activities. They don't want them to occur indoors. So music classes can be held inside, but the actual playing and singing can be done outside, where distancing can be reliable and they can remove their masks for those activities.
Okay.
I do see some questions around supporting the student transition to the model. I know Jan can join in on this as well, but we have talked a lot about the fact that the first few weeks of school, even remote online learning, will be spent, you know, easing into it slowly, making sure students are fully instructed, informed, you know, with a lot of patience around all of the adjustments that have to be made. So I think the answer is we're going to ease into it and spend a lot of time up front on safety and our physical surroundings and social distancing, a lot of practice. And I think the same will occur through the online. Really listening to families. Part of that will include the office hours that Jan spoke of. Teachers reaching out to families. How is it going? Are there any issues? What do we need to be made aware of? And in terms of the hours, how many hours are teachers going to receive their training throughout the year? One of the benefits of online learning also includes online virtual professional development. So much of the training offered can be pre-recorded. It will be recorded webinars as well as live webinars that teachers can do on their own time when it's convenient for them. It's not like they have to be present for presenters coming to the school. So again, flexibility is key. We're trying to provide training and learning opportunities in a way that teachers can access it when the time is right for them. And that includes on remote learning, on social emotional, on strategies for different content areas.
I would also offer that, to ask the question, how many hours? This is not a college lecture course where there's an expectation for certain numbers of hours per week. We're going to differentiate for our teachers the way we do for our students. And so some will access more training than others. We have some staff that are incredibly comfortable with remote learning and the technology and programs involved, and others who prefer in person and would like a little bit more. So I think that we need to take that on we can't make a gross generalization. Yes, Chris, there will be flexibility on remote learning attendance. So attendance can be, and Wendy can speak more to this, attendance can be assessed with perhaps project-based learning that happens in the week. So work completion is a measure of attendance. A check-in for a question in a class meeting might be a way to track attendance. They've given us a lot of different options for that, but those expectations will be set forth for your students by the building principals before the start of school. And Wendy, you could probably speak more to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really beautiful answer. You know, flexibility is key. And we also try to, even though we are required to take daily attendance, we also know that some students will be working at different hours of the day or in the evening with parents. So that's why we can always go back and adjust the attendance based on any involvement, engagement, work completed throughout the week. So yes, we have to do daily, but we're going to take into consideration what was the level of engagement, involvement, whether in person or remotely for live instruction and conversations, or through completed work. There is going to be a lot of flexibility.
And Emily, I think I saw your question about will there be some sort of way to meet before school starts? And actually, I think we're going to maybe talk about a way to have, yes, either some of that through a video meeting or maybe even some outside meet the teacher, staggered kind of meetings. We haven't really fully talked about that yet, but we will do some sort of connection with families before school starts, and we'll try to plan most of that, I hope, next week and get that out to you.
Hi, Jan. This is Jim.
Hi.
I just want to clarify. What I guess I'm trying to figure out is, what are we doing as an administration to help support the teachers in on top of their daily job now that they're doing this hybrid learning model? What kind of training and how many hours are you guys actually providing them? Not on top of their job where they do it on their own, but like that professional development that you guys are doing at the beginning. How long is that going to continue through the year? What are you guys doing to support the teachers to make this transition a lot smoother? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I understand the 5 hours at the beginning, and I'm sorry I was a little bit late, but some of us are busy too. So so if I missed that, I'm just trying to look to what you guys are doing throughout the year to make sure that this is going to be successful for the teachers. I felt like in the springtime, they were kind of left out to dry, and I just want to make sure that that type situation doesn't kind of like continue. Is there going to be like a monthly teachers meeting where they get to kind of express and try and improve the system that we have, because it is so new. I'm not expecting perfection from you guys, but I want to know if you guys have a plan of like, how are we going to help the teachers overcome teaching with their internet not doing so well.
So I can start that answer, Jim. One of the surveys we sent out did include our staff, and we asked them to tell us what worked and what didn't work. And a lot of it fell into two categories. And I think we all felt sort of a semblance of this. There's sort of a sense of anxiety and PTSD about potentially coming back into the buildings. So that's why we're providing some social emotional trainings and education, and just a place where people can vent, not just teachers, but our support staff, our teachers, our custodians, our bus drivers, all of our employees, all of our administrators, even some of our board members can get to a place where they have access to these trainings. We also were told that they wanted more information in certain platforms, learning management systems, whether that is Seesaw K2, Google Classroom 3.6, Schoology 7.12, or something that could really make lives easier after some front loading, and that's this Canvas learning management system. So we have addressed what their concerns are. I know that many other people have come in and said, well, are you worried about this or are you worried about that? We've asked the question, and in our minds, And we've also met with our union leadership weekly and sometimes multiple times during the day. So we are all on top of how people are feeling and trying to address both the social emotional piece, the way we do with our students, and whatever professional development they need to be successful in a fully remote, hybrid, or in-person model.
And I would
Right.
just
And I
add,
guess I was trying to be more specific about, not about the social and emotional, but how do you teach math across the internet? How are you going to get
Yeah, so that's what the Vermont
kids to read
Cooperative is
and then be
going
able
to
to react?
allow.
Right.
I know
Yeah.
math
And
is your
so is
thing.
that just a, right, sorry.
No,
Um,
I appreciate it.
I just don't know much about that. And then so, that platform, is that a continuing ed throughout the year for the
Yes.
teachers too?
Yes.
yes, Jim, this is Wendy Savery. They do update webinars and trainings throughout the year. And it's all around strategies for remote learning, again, which can be used by the hybrid model or the full-time. Particularly around curriculum, as well as management of the learning management system, so that communication becomes easier, progress monitoring, giving feedback to students and parents becomes easier. And I'd also mention that knowing we needed to do the deep cleaning on Wednesdays, that we were also mindful of making sure that teachers had a full day for planning, for PD, and with a lot of options and flexibility. But in terms of the content, there will be ongoing information through the Vermont Cooperative, and all teachers will have access to that.
I know before we go on to Kimbo One's question, I've had several texts from families who want to know a little bit about the after school program. Tommy, are you still there? Oh, yes, you are. Hi, Tommy. And Tommy, sorry that I didn't acknowledge earlier that you are our after school coordinator and virtual academy coordinator.
There we go. 1 minute.
We can hear you.
All right, perfect. Sorry about that. Yeah, so for after school, we meet regularly with our statewide committee, as well as our federal oversight committee, because we are a federal grant. For those who are not familiar with that, the 21st Century Grant is controlled by the federal government. They have instructed us that we follow the model that is set forth by the school. So in this case, as Jan has been speaking to, as well as others, this hybrid model would mean, again, Jan said Group A to help make that. If Group A is Monday, Tuesday inside the school, then Group A can attend after school in person. Group B, that would be your Thursday, Friday learners inside the school, would have to then attend Thursday, Friday. But to counter all of that, part of our big push from the state was to also make sure there is remote options similar to what we had this summer. This summer, after we made the decision to go fully remote out of safety and concern for our families, it also became a very good test ground, and we got very positive results across the district from our virtual learning. So we're taking that and putting that across the board. We also want to make it clear that should any family across the district choose to fully access education remotely, meaning not attending in person, we will still offer after school enrichment through a remote means. We have some techniques and ways to do that, so we do not want to make anyone feel that they would not be able to access that as well. So we'll be doing all of that. And again, as we go forward, we do the same thing like all the rest of us, is as new information comes out, we adjust. And other than that, I'm also available if there's any further questions or concerns about after school. Also, I am serving as the Virtual Learning Academy coordinator. So also to help you out, Jim, a little bit with your question too. The main job of that role is really support, and we want to support our students, our educators, and our families. So those three main groupings we want to be there for.
Thank you, Tommy. Sorry, I forgot to introduce you at the beginning too. I apologize. Kat, did you want to answer Kim's question? And then I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. We've gone over a little bit. So I think maybe we should try to give us about 5 more minutes to wrap up. And then I know if there are other questions, you certainly all can email me. And if I can't answer, I will definitely get it to the folks here that can for you. So Kat, sorry.
Well, I'll start it. It's our curriculum expert is the expert, but potentially is, I think, the answer. So if a 3rd grade student is doing hybrid, then they are accessing the materials at school plus materials through the Vermont Cooperative. If they are doing a full remote program, it is primarily the Vermont Cooperative. Wendy, is that how you would characterize it?
Yes, and the reason for that, it doesn't mean that the fully remote, that those teachers can't supplement. For instance, they will have access pre-K to 2 with Seesaw. There will be access to Dreambox. If they have valuable pieces from the local curriculum that was useful, it doesn't mean they can't supplement. But the primary reason we had to go that route is because we don't know if we'll have enough remote teachers per school. So we had to turn it into an LNSU virtual academy to ensure that we would have enough remote learning teachers. So we at least wanted the remote learning to have the same courses, but all K-6 teachers will have access to the Vermont Learning Cooperative curriculum.
Thank you, Wendy and Kat. And I think Brian Pena, who is our IT director, wanted to speak a little bit. Brian, are you still there?
Well, you know, I've been kicked off twice, so maybe in and out.
Oh dear.
Hello, sorry about that. Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I was trying to get back to my computer here for a second. Yeah, so thanks a lot for having me. I am Brian Pena, Director of Technology for the Moore North Supervisory Union and School District. Just a quick one, just want to throw it out. So we are progressing well, as we spoke of last night. We are progressing well in our path towards a one-to-one environment, meaning what that means is making sure that we can get one device in the hand of every student in the schools, including the districts. We have made significant progress in achieving that. We have experienced barriers such as logistical barriers and identifying the funds. So we are doing a lot as fast as we can, and I do thank the IT department, and I thank Sarah Preston, who is helping to run this session in the background. She's there. So thanks a lot to you. So we are continuing what we're doing as fast as we can. I would like to also point out that we do still have some wireless devices called MiFis. So if you are a family that is in need of supplemental internet for your home, please do reach out to the Waterville help desk, and I will put the help desk address in the chat so you can email. And if you are hoping or requesting a MiFi and you think you're a good candidate, we would be willing to help you out. But keep in mind, this is a Verizon MiFi. So if you have Verizon and you don't have very good service, please keep in mind that that would be the same situation for this MiFi device. AT&T is unfortunately still behind in their supplies, so I cannot source from AT&T at this time. So if you think it would be a good choice for you, do please reach out and we will try to get you one as soon as possible. If you have any questions, always contact the IT department on issues such as that, and I will help out as much as possible. So,
Brian, there's one that you could answer right now. Has to do with, if you look in the sidebar.
Hang on, let's see.
Yeah.
When is school to be using your laptop?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I just sort of tried to answer Heather, sorry.
See. Yep. So Heather, so that goes back to our approach is to try to get one device in the hands of every one child. So one-to-one program. That is where we're going. We're working on assigning devices to students so that he or she or they can have that one device with them, and it'll follow them the entire time. That way we can minimize cross-exposure and or avoid cross-exposure.
So home and school, back and forth. Yes.
Okay.
I guess my question, sorry, this is Heather on that, is,
oh, hi, Heather.
hi. first of all, let me just so I have the mic. Thank you all for everything you've been doing. This is a tough time for everybody, and I wouldn't want to be in your position. So thank you for sticking with it. And my question is, the laptops. So the students will be responsible. Are you guys going to provide little, laptop bags, or will they just throw them in their backpacks? Not that my student would break them, but there's that concern.
Yeah, so I'll answer that real quick. So yes, we are looking to purchase what are called notebook sleeves to go home for every student. And we're actually in the process of procuring those at this time. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. And again, if you think of a question that pops into your mind later tonight, tomorrow, please email to me or anyone of our experts here, and we will get the questions answered for you. Oh, Kat has something to say. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not a question. I know that we're ending the meeting, but I just wanted to say, because I know that there are a lot of faculty, staff on the call, and the sort of the grace and the dignity and the calm that was shown last year is something I don't think many people have the good fortune to express. But I think our team was extraordinary. And so thank you, and thank you. And families, please know that our educators, all of us, are giving you our 1000% investment.
Thank you, Kat. And thank you all again for joining us. And again, please, if you have any questions that pop up, do email them and we will get them answered. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you again.